Hey, everybody. Before we begin the show, I wanted to give a shout out to our friends at POWERPOOL. POWERPOOL is a mining pool and is one of the most profitable for miners. So if you have one miner at home or a fleet of miners at scale, point your workers to POWERPOOL to enjoy the best payouts. POWERPOOL supports a number of algorithms, SHA-256 for Bitcoin, X11 for Dash, and others. And of course, we're focused and we care about the most, S-CRYPT for Litecoin, Dogecoin, and now Bell's Coin, merge mining. Pointing your workers to POWERPOOL is easy with its simple user interface, and the platform also has all the reporting available that your operation needs. Typically, POWERPOOL extends a low 1% pool fee. However, if you register with the 84 million link in the show notes, you will lock in a sub 1% pool fee, which is excellent. So start mining with the most profitable pool in 2024 and register for POWERPOOL with the link in the show notes. Cheers, happy mining. Hello, and welcome to the 84 Million Podcast. Today is episode 25, and we have as our guest Mr. Grant Cook. So what do we say about Grant? Hey, Grant. Grant is a member of the Litecoin community who hosts the weekly Litecoin Underground Spaces, which has surpassed its third year. Grant was involved in hosting the MWEB launch party in 2022, and just this past summer, he sat as a panel moderator at the 2024 Litecoin Summit in Nashville. Follow Grant on YouTube, X, and podcast platforms at Litecoin Underground. I know on X it's LTC Underground rather than just Litecoin Underground. But Grant, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me. This has been a long time coming. I'll be honest with you. I was like, when is Kyle going to ask me? How do you, maybe I just have a little inflated sense of my position in the Litecoin community. That could be some of it.
Well, we want to talk about that, and I think you're doing really good things. And again, congrats on 3 years. And I think it is a long time coming. I know I private message you. I'm like, Grant, it's time. And there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm willing to come on. So glad to have you here. You know, how do I say it? We do have similar shoes to fill, although very different and very distinct. I mean, you do spaces more than, although they are podcasts, and you do upload them with narrative, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But you know, you do the media thing, you get the ideas, I get people together, you interview folks and really kind of go live just with a whole bunch of who knows who is going to show up in your room, and you kind of host that, and it's pretty amazing. So this is not that platform, but we'll go right into it. Before we look at what you're doing with Underground, typically I like to ask the guests, you know, what brought you to Litecoin to begin with? So can you just explain pre-Underground, early crypto Grant, why Litecoin?
Early crypto Grant, yeah. Well, I wanted, before I jump into that, I do want to say, you and I we occupy the same like space, but we do different things. And I think it's actually a nice marriage. I don't know. I take this the way you want to take it. I feel like you're more serious than I am, but that's good. Like I don't slow down enough sometimes to do the research that I should do. A lot of the stuff I talk about is, I feel like I'm more human oriented as opposed to protocol oriented. But anyway, I don't want to. We can dive into that later.
I think we will.
I got into Bitcoin because, boy, I'm trying to think how it started. Here's my origin story. So I was at work, and I had a old house that I was renting. I had, my normal 401k and stuff, and I think I had a little goal, not much at all. And I said to my coworker, I was like, what is there besides like stocks and real estate and gold, And he was kind of somebody who listened to libertarian stuff, a Glenn Beck type of guy. He's like, well, you can always buy Bitcoin, and he didn't have any. He just said it kind of off the cuff, right? And just almost like, you could buy Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, what is Bitcoin? He tried to explain it. And so I started researching it. This is probably 2016. Okay. Early 2016, pre-election 2016. And I don't know, I didn't buy a lot. I just thought of it as like this thing a gamble, right? They always tell you when you're a certain age, you should gamble a little bit with a certain portion of your portfolio. So I very logically, convinced myself to do it. And the more I learned about it, like by, Roger Ver was somebody who influenced me, Antonopoulos, like listening to what they talked about, I went, this makes a lot of sense. And I remember talking to my dad, because my he has a rare coin company. So he's been a rare coin for a long time, but he's not a gold bug or anything. It's just a business to him. So like, he's not some super passionate libertarian or something like that. But, I remember him thinking like, well, what do you do if you want to sell it? I'm like, well, you can just sell it. Like literally right now while I'm sitting with you having lunch, I can go sell it. And I think like he at the time didn't give it much weight, but I definitely got into that. This is going to be the money of the world, international trade. And, a friend of mine had mined some Bitcoin a long time ago. And he and I got to talking about it all the time. And he got into Litecoin and kind of said, hey, you should check this out. But that was, unfortunately, it wasn't March of 17. It was like May of 17. So had it been March, I'd have been, much happier. But either way, that's kind of how I started. And, I really didn't dive much into the social media aspect of things. I've never been a huge social media. I didn't do other things in, other platforms before. You probably know I kind of stumbled into what Litecoin Underground became. I was a very glamorous account. You can go look me up. I still have it. Mega Chunky Buns, which another origin story I could tell you. But I kind of made a couple videos there. And then what got some attention was the whole Walmart Litecoin thing. And I was into, this was during COVID, and debunking fake news and understanding how the media works. Like I started just all of that. It all kind of tied together of when you see a headline going, this doesn't make sense. Let me dig into this. And there was something that didn't make sense about it. And I searched, I think it was the hashtag like delist Litecoin. That's what it was. And I was like, why would anybody say delist? That's so illogical. It has nothing to do with the coin, but it was happening all the time. And I was like, there's something going on here. So I started looking up all the accounts, and they were all these like brand new accounts, and it was obviously bots. And so that gave me a little bit of, I don't know, maybe confidence to do stuff. And I'm giving you my whole origin story.
You're good. Keep it up.
And there was a user, he used to go by Litecoin Elvis. I don't think he exists anymore. And he was posting about setting up a Lightning Network node for Litecoin. And there was a, kind of back and forth. I thought, why don't we have a place to meet and just discuss Litecoin stuff? So in my mind, I always thought of like a technical help, like a help desk, or someone like, I always thought of Johnny Litecoin. I've said this
Litecoin
before.
Tech Support.
Yeah, which he had, I think.
That literally is him, John Moore, Litecoin Tech Support.
So I thought of him, like he knows a lot about POS systems and how businesses are interested, because he's been in that payments arena for a long time. Now, why as a community should we should be taking knowledge from someone like him and going out, if we have a business in the area that wants to adopt Litecoin, it's important to know what those businesses are interested in. So that was like where this whole idea came from of let's get together and learn from each other, And I was surprised how little I don't want to say little community, but yeah, we had people that posted a lot, but considering Bitcoin had like 10,000 spaces and 50 podcasts and whatever else, I thought this is crazy that there is not a Litecoin space consistently. And it was my account, the Litecoin Underground account, started in
2021.
It just had the birthday because it actually popped up. And it was like the day after Litecoin's birthday. But my original spaces, I think, was in my old account for the first one. But
okay.
So that's kind of how I started this. And it wasn't it wasn't planned. And I think you had mentioned in the notes, you were curious where Litecoin Underground came from. That's what made me launch the account, because I had the spaces and we were talking about Litecoin. Oh man, we had a few different ideas of like, let's name it this or name it that. Let's have a community. And I literally woke up and I was like envisioning that London Underground logo. And I was like, Litecoin Underground. It's perfect, right? Like it's just a perfect, it just fit, because it was kind of like, let's be this underground kind of unformed thing and go out and just take the world by storm type of thing. I don't know that we did that, but we're getting there. 3 years, we're on our upswing now. We've built the foundation. So,
no, I think so. I think that's a good story. One about how you got into Litecoin, just your interest there, and then yes, I was going to ask you kind of the early days of Underground. I remember your Mega Chunky Buns account. I don't know what it means, but it's still around.
Playing Roblox, and I randomly picked a name. I thought it was funny,
So we needed to add that to your bio, that you're also a dad, because you've mentioned that, and I think it's good. So am I. It's a good thing. We need to honor fathers in the space too. I think there are a lot of good dads in Litecoin. But I remember you posted the video. I want to say you were on your back porch. I know there was bricks behind you or something like that. I think you were on your back porch. You're like, I think we're going to call it Underground. And did you ever have like an official vote, or just like vibes from the folks? I mean, you mentioned you kind of had a mental vision or image, and people went along with it. But did you ever like field it, or was it just kind of something you wanted to do?
No.
In terms of the name?
No, because we were talking, I want to say, like Litecoin Alliance, Litecoin Army, like the things you've heard of that are typical. And
Underground's better.
Yeah, it worked. It just fit in the logo. And what's funny is, like, I sit here and I still have that stupid PFP for Twitter. My hats are up here.
Well, that's the you have the Bored Ape.
Yeah, I know, but it's not what it should be. Like, this is what I made in a hat. I just made that on a
I have one of those.
Canva or something like that, or whoever made the hat. Actually, I can tell you that. This custom ink, I just designed it on their website.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I just need to get it. I'm being lazy with it, but eventually I'll do it and have shirts again or something. I don't know. But.
Yeah. No, it's good. I think it's important. I identify with you saying, like, there's so much out there for Bitcoin. What about Litecoin? And it's interesting because 84 million and Underground were actually around the same time. It was that post-COVID sort of returning to normalcy period. I think we had some kind of, let's just say, more bullish expectations or sentiment at the time. Like, things are kind of turning around. And I mean, some of that was disappointed over time. Granted, we're still here, and I think I want to talk about that too. But it was an interesting season, and I realized my account was October too. So it's interesting to see the paths we took, even though you have your own platform and the 84 million is 84 million. We didn't do the podcast at the time at all. That's just when the site was built and I started to do FAQs, and I just had this kind of channeling of ideas that just came out. It was like an inspiration, which sounds like kind of what happened with you. Kind of, you're just like, this needs to be done. No one's going to do it. I'm going to do it. And you did.
It did surprise me. And I think I get that vibe a lot too from current Litecoiners, when they're just like, well, why isn't somebody doing this? Or why isn't somebody doing that? And it's a little bit of the foundation thing. And I think that's the like the yin and yang of the foundation. There's some powerful things about having a guiding light, somebody to go, this is our stamp of approval.
Yeah.
That makes the rest of us say, I have no reason to distrust these people. And they've been fantastic in that role. Mm-hmm. But it also makes people go, well, the foundation will just do it. I'm just going to sit back and let them do it. You know what I mean? But it's understandable. We live in an environment where, the world is built on these authorities that we just assume somebody else is going to do it. I mean, how often do you, I love when you see a post like, we need to do this. It's like, who is we? Who are you talking about? We, you need to get your act together. And that's just human nature. It's a lot easier to ask or complain than it is to actually do.
Yeah.
And so the launching the podcast was more, I did the spaces for maybe 6-8 weeks, something like that. And I was like, well, what the heck? Why Litecoin, who, I don't know if you've ever had him on.
I have. He was episode 5 or 4. No, Luke was 4. He was episode 5. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So he and I communicated, because he and I in the beginning were like, basically ran those spaces. And, I never knew him or anything, but we talked a little bit, and I was like, let's do a podcast, So he did the first episode, and that was it. That's all I got out of him. Mm-hmm. But, so we,
I
remember
asked you
telling my dad, I
to
was
do
like,
a
here's this.
podcast too, to be fair. I had.
What's that?
I remember after you started Spaces, I had asked you to do a podcast too.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
I did. Probably a few people did. I think we were just like, hey, we got Litecoin Spaces. And then you did start uploading them with extra narrative content and sort of some, but how can I describe it? Maybe like a what Bitcoin did sort of vibe. Because I think he does like the pre-show and then the show where he like tells you what's going to happen and then it happens and then it closes. Like you had your space, but you kind of gave a preliminary sort of talk before you went into the space on the podcast application.
A little bit.
So we did get a podcast. And I was, by the way, thank you. You were the first one published into podcast, but I remember asking like, Grant, you got to start a podcast. You're like, I just do Spaces. And that's no just do Spaces. I'm still not willing to do Spaces. Now, maybe that changes, but I think that's what you're doing and you do it well. So
it's funny because it's, it is a bit of a, I don't know. I always think of like Howard. I used to love Howard Stern. I don't love him that much anymore, but I used to listen to him all the time. And that was, I would love to have that format. Like if I had no job, like real life job, and I could just had infinite money and
right,
and I could format a show to, you know, have kind of a news section and bring in guests and do interviews of things that I'm interested in. But it requires a lot of work. You know, it requires a lot of preparation. You know, I mentioned I'm having somebody on tomorrow, like Martha Bueno. She's a libertarian. She's got a whole lot of things she's done. She's run for office. And if I didn't have a normal job and I could sit there and research and think about what am I going to talk about and craft an image and all this, I think that would be, it'd be great. It'd be fun, but it's a lot of work. I mean, the people that really, a guy like Peter McCormick, that stuff doesn't happen by accident. It's really difficult to, especially he goes solo. Like I have an animal on in the last 6 weeks, or just consistently somebody in those spaces to give me some feedback it's huge for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I need somebody to like, this is all making sense to you, right? Like I throw all this shit out of my brain. It's like, I'm bouncing it off of you. Please acknowledge that this doesn't sound crazy. Mm-hmm. So having him on has been great. You know, I think as we continue to do this, you know, we've been doing Saturday morning live streams. I think if we stay consistent with that, like we have the podcast, the spaces, that we'll start to develop a good rapport and structure to the show. It's just kind of in its beginning stages. So that's been a lot of fun. I do like the live streams. I think they're probably the next step. Video is really where people are for the most part. But audio, I don't know. I listen to it. I listen to podcasts. I don't watch videos, but other people do.
Yeah, that's interesting too. And like you publish on all platforms. So do we. And I kind of do both a little bit, but I understand the appeal of the visual. I think there's some interesting artifacts that can be picked up and ascertained that you're not going to get just in audio, but there's something satisfying about you're just like taking a long drive or you're, mowing the lawn or doing something normal and you're just like tuned in, and we're different. We're not 20, so we're a little older than maybe some other folks out there that are more just visual based for everything they do.
I think it's video should be short form.
Well, that's what it is basically now. Literally shorts, right? So whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, like it's like, hey, I have a 4-second, attention span. What am I going to learn? And that's cool. But that's, again, you talked about time investment and I agree with you. And even with 84 million, the outset, because you've done, and I just want to just comment on this. Many of the listeners here already know Grant, know what he's doing, have tuned into spaces at least on occasion or regularly. But 3 years weekly on a Wednesday, that's a lot of episodes. On the outset, after we had our kind of standalone interview with David Burkett, and it kind of morphed into this setting, and we're grateful to do it, and I plan on continuing it. Like, I never committed to weekly because I know how much work it is. And I'm like, I want these to be evergreen, something you can tune into anytime and get value from it, and they hopefully will have them age well. And that was my goal, and God willing, I'm meeting that goal for everybody. But I'm on episode 25. You've had probably 100? or more. I mean, I can do the math. If I did 150 in 3 years, or 52 weeks a year.
I said I've missed a couple weeks, so I'm probably at like 150.
But that's a lot. It's a lot of time. That's a lot. I'm just commending you, sir, for the amount of time you've given to the Litecoin community.
I said to my daughter today, because I mentioned the sport of curling. I curl. I have a friend who got me into it, and this year I'm like, I don't even know that I'm wanting to. Like I do at the end of the season every year, I go, man, that was a lot of fun. I should be doing that more. But then when the summer goes by and I go back into it, I'm like, I don't know. It's a whole night a week, and not sure if I want to do it. I'm already staying up late on Wednesdays. So like, am I going to get enough sleep? And I said, I told her, like, the people on Wednesday nights have become my friends. It really has. I have obviously good friends from growing up, and, people that tomorrow night I'm going to hang out with some buddies, hang out by a fire, and that's great. But, the people that have come in there, we've had long conversations. I mean, the old spaces, I used to do spaces for like 5 hours.
Yes, you did.
2:30 in the morning. I don't even know how I did that.
And then there was a period where you had spaces, and then basically someone else would host a post spaces, and you would attend that too. You just didn't host it.
Yeah. Well, because hosting is a commitment, right? So if somebody else would do it, I'd be glad to jump, because it was like, let me jump in for a half hour, bring the crowd over. That was my idea. Bring the other Litecoiners who want to continue talking, West Coast people, and then I'll just leave, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, guys, gosh, there's so many of them that through the time. I mean, Baglamas and Latin Slovak and Animal and Indigo. I mean, I feel like I built so many. I had so many long conversations that I think are productive conversations. We talked about anything. It could be not just crypto. We would talk about the politics and people's, I don't know, some personal lives. Not a ton of that, but it just felt like very comfortable to say anything. And I mean, that's something that I've always been. I'm not afraid to speak my mind. I feel like for the most part, if I have an idea that that's gonna come out of my mouth, it's not unfounded. I try to have thought these things through, and I might be wrong, and I'm willing to admit that. I won't admit it without a fight, but I will admit it if I'm wrong. So yeah. That's what the show is, and I sometimes wonder if I dominate the show too much, and that's where I like where Animal is. Animal's a bit of a balance. It allows me to step back, and I think he has he's a little different than I am. His opinions don't always agree with mine, and that's been a big help. And I was looking for that long ago. I was looking for like a news person or somebody just to be that co-host, because I couldn't talk all the time, I mean, I can talk, but shit, that's a lot of talk.
I think it's great you have Animal with you. And of course, I met you and I met Animal, kind of IRL back at the summit, which was great. We had a lot of fun there. Yeah, I think I commend you for the spaces. It's something that I've not done. I always kind of laugh and think it's a personality thing, that you're more attuned to kind of preside over the meeting, you know what I mean? But it's actually a meeting. Like you're meeting in real life with people. You don't know who are going to come in the room. You don't know how many people are going to be in the room. Although I'm sure you've grown over time. But on the same token, and I wanted to talk about this, you've been doing this for 3 years. We've had a lot of euphoria and depression, maybe more depression than euphoria in our space. Mm-hmm. And what keeps you motivated when the air is sucked out of the room?
A lot of it's obligation that I've committed to doing this. And I don't know, it's a good question, because there have been times I'm like, I probably should just stop, like, or just take a break. Mm-hmm. And I think I've taken, like this summer, I took a couple weeks off. That's why I give a little bit of, like when I go on vacation, but I didn't have times where I go on vacation. I'd be like, well, I'm just going to start it, do it for like 40 minutes, check in, just make an appearance type of thing. I don't know. Like I said, a lot of people are my friends. I think I've had a lot of very interesting conversations. There's not a lot of outlets in your life to talk about taxation and how money printing is this horrible monster, right? And how governments have just are run amok. I mean, you can't have a logical conversation with most people. It becomes politicized. It becomes argumentative. And I think what I feel these spaces have been, and I would say the thing I'm most proud of, is that we can have conversations where people don't agree with each other, and it generally 99% of the time does not become combative. It's not meant that you dislike somebody or you're not going to come back to listen because somebody said something that offended you or something like that. That's not part of what we're trying to create. And I think that's, I'm hopeful the internet can change. I really believe that. I think that the biggest problem we have is we don't talk to each other. We don't try to understand each other. And like, more than anything, I think I tapped into this a few weeks ago. Whatever it is, the media or politics, whatever you want to call it, the big powers that be, keeping us all pitted against each other all the time has really been, it's like we all have PTSD, and we expect, like, it's amazing how often we're like, oh, you're voting for this guy, or you think this, or you like this, therefore everything about you is suspect, or you must be this horribly immoral person. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just not, it's not true. Most goddamn 99.99% of people are good people. They want a better world. They trust their neighbors. They go to work every day. They're trying to make an honest living. They're not trying to hurt other people. So to leap to that conclusion that just because you're voting for the other party or because you bought a coin I don't like, that somehow you're morally corrupt, is so bizarre. And if we can be willing to let other people voice their opinions and try to have constructive conversation without name calling and shutting people down, like, that's hopefully where the internet can end up. I don't know if human nature will allow it, but that's, I think, where I've morphed into. And what I'm most motivated by is that I can, I don't know, represent that. Yeah, I think I do that. There are certainly times I look back and I was like, oh, I was kind of a jerk last night. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have gone after this person. I don't do it often, but there are definitely times where I kind of regret the way I acted. And so, yeah, just to demonstrate how it is to have constructive conversations, because most people are not very versed in that. And it's hard. It's really difficult sometimes, like, to let people tell you, oh, hey, you're wrong. Okay, well, just explain to me why I'm wrong. And then say, well, what about this and this? Oh, okay, they're answering my questions. Maybe, fair enough, I might be wrong. I might have had a bad opinion, or we might just disagree. God forbid we just disagree on something. That's okay. Like, right. Life goes on, So that to me, if I could, again, go into building a massive platform, it would be to spread the idea of having disagreements is fine. We're all good. Most people are good people. Just remove power from their hands. Right? Yeah. You believe, I mean, you get that. You're a very, what I like about you is you're so knowledgeable on you talk libertarianism, you start talking governments and history, and you're like rattling off shit. I'm like, this is great. I'm just gonna put this on a platter and let Kyle do his thing.
Although, it's funny. I don't know if I do that here. I feel like in your room sometimes I do, but I don't know if that happens here. But the nice thing about here is I get to just ask and listen to you, and maybe people don't hear as much from me. But
well, don't be so modest.
It's good.
It's okay to have an opinion,
No, I do. It's just interesting when I'm asking of my guests, I get to hear more of them. I always say, I can be the idiot. You're the one that has to know what you're doing because you're the one talking most of the time. I'm the fool that gets to learn. But you've also expressed that too. Like, you're in a room with people who disagree with you in real time sometimes. Yeah. You're also in a room with a lot of people that do agree with you. But you get to learn through that kind of vulnerability. And it's kind of like, oh, shoot, whenever guest is coming into the room or whoever you might be dealing with the space, it can challenge the person. I think some people might see you or me as some like, oh, it's some invincible platform and they've been doing it forever and it's so simple. When it's like, no, it actually can be quite taxing. It takes a lot of time. And, there's challenges with it, but there's also a benefit that we get to experience that we would never have if we were unwilling to do it. And you were willing to do it. I'm willing to do it. We're not going to be here forever, but we get to do it for now. But back to the rooms and back to your spaces. Do you prefer a full room or an empty room? And maybe what are the differences for you as a host or just experiencing in that those different environments?
That's pretty good, because I sometimes look down, because a lot of times I'm just talking. I'll just be chatting with someone and I'm not even looking at the phone. I'll be walking around the room if I'm just kind of brainstorming. I'm having like a good conversation, and I'll look down and I'll be like, oh, there's like 80 people in here. Okay. Now all of a sudden I feel like there's some pressure. If it's just the 12 people that show up, then whatever. But no offense to those 12 people. I'm not putting on a show for you, but I think, okay, I got to be on my game, right? I don't know why, even though most of those people can be bots or whatever, but the full rooms, I find myself the biggest rooms I get into are when I choose to go into a different like spaces and try to speak on behalf of like be the Litecoin representative. That I do truly get like a little bit, all right, my heart's racing, and I try to just same thing, almost close my eyes in the sense that I'm going to put the phone away from me and just start talking as if nobody else is there as I'm ranting. That's where you hope to have the most influence, is people that don't already believe in Litecoin. And that's kind of what, the Spaces has morphed into. It's a bit of a place to check in for current Litecoiners and maybe renew their faith. It's like our church, I guess. I think we'll have better conversation. Bull markets will bring more people in. It's been, like I said, I started right after Walmart. Do you know what the price was after Walmart?
I actually forgot about everybody knows about the Walmart, because the ones that want to go around and FUD and troll, they'll still bring up Walmart, just like Charlie selling or whatever. So that's like, unfortunately, something to be used against the project. But I forgot that you're correct. It was concurrent with that season.
Yes,
and I forgot about that.
225. Walmart shot up to like 2.25, and then came back to 180. So since then, it's been just this like for 3 years. I'm like overseeing, and I'm going, maybe I'm cursed. Maybe if I stop doing this, things will reverse.
You don't get any lower than low, and I'm pretty sure
it's lower.
I don't want to say it's impossible, but I really have a hard time seeing it going lower than where we are now.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what the ultimate thing with Litecoiners is we've, what do they call it? Like the slings and arrows or whatever from that soliloquy. You just go, what do you got to say to me, dude? I've been riding this out for so long.
Yeah.
You can't, it's like iron, right? Like forged in the toughest environments. So these Bitcoiners like, it's been sideways for 6 months. Like, oh, really? It's been sideways for 6 months. I'm very sad for you. Try 7 years. See how many of those Bitcoiners are this devout after 7 years.
Right.
And that's where, like you said, that you've reached a foundation of people that are here and they get it. They understand that there's no failure here. Like, if Bitcoin is successful, then there's no way Litecoin can't be successful.
Yep.
And I don't look at it as I try not to talk about the investment side of things, because I think it's a crazy environment, but just keep that in mind. There is still the risk asset thing. I still think there's a part of that, but for the most part, if you're looking in the crypto space and saying, what's something that's going to be around in 10 years? If Bitcoin's around, Litecoin's going to be around.
Do agree with you. Here.
It's just reality. And the fact that Litecoin is growing is what is so, man, that is, to me, the thing that I don't know that Litecoiners recognize in my mind, to me, is the luckiest thing. It is luck. There are a number of coins that could have been chosen by the general public to start using. It could have been Dogecoin, it could have been Bitcoin Cash, it could have been Nano, it could have been Monero. You know what they're gravitating towards is Litecoin. And that network effect does have some real value. I just was at a gas station today, and I went in and said that little sticker, Bitcoin sold here, bought and sold here.
Yep.
And I looked up the ATM, and they have 4 assets you can buy and sell: Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum, right? That part of the equation is you can't replace. It takes so much work. Even today, I wish it was in my pocket. I had a Susan B. Anthony or a Sacagawea dollar. And I was thinking about adoption. I was like, think about like this even. I went to put air in my tires, and I couldn't use the dollar coin. And I think about that friction of changing every vending machine in the world to accept a dollar coin.
Yeah.
Or it's US dollars.
Which is probably going to be inevitable if we keep using change at the rate of inflation.
yeah. But point being, right? Like it's friction to adopt actual legal money, much less this new magical internet money. So these overcoming those barriers, the things that when people complain about the foundation, I understand there's, price gets you all upset, but the reality is their focus on adoption, and that you can't deny the success in that realm. Like it's off the charts. Literally almost everywhere Bitcoin is, Litecoin is. That's amazing. Out of 20,000 cryptocurrencies, you can put, 3 fingers and get Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin are pretty much everywhere.
Yep.
Even though it's a non-hyped coin, somebody nobody cares about, the price action's been crap, whatever, it's there. Try to do that as Solana. Go retrofit all those vending machines. The ATM machines. It's hard. It's very hard. Jumping through all the hoops and the regulations. So that's the biggest thing that Litecoin, I think, is, I don't want to call it luck because there has been work done, but things, circumstances of events could have gone another direction, and it would have been Bitcoin Cash, or it would have been Dogecoin, or it would have been Dash, right?
Yeah, Dash was a big one. And I know there's a lot of folks in the Dash community that are still pretty active. Before the show, we were talking about kind of the panels and Litecoin Summit. And
by the way, can I point out,
Joel Valenzuela was a Dasher, and he was on your panel. Go ahead.
He still is, but I just want to point out, in case somebody watches that video, this is Friday night. It's 10:40 p.m. So this isn't like if you air this at 9 in the morning. I just want to make sure
we want to make sure everyone knows
I'm not waking up
that I'm drinking coffee and he's day drinking. I set it up.
Problem. Not me. This man is the problem, right?
It's decaffeinated. It's like mushroom coffee with like a hint of caffeine in it, because I'm like,
what is mushroom coffee?
I need to drink something. It's there's a tiny bit of I don't know, it could just be vaporware, but it tastes good and it's not very caffeinated and it's coffee like. I used to also do what was the other one that I would do? Chicory root is actually it's more of a tea, but it's actually very coffee-ish. That if you want to drink it at night, and there's like inulin in it, it's good for your gut and all this sort of thing. So it's supposed to be pro-digestion. The mushrooms are more like pro-cognitive, like who knows? It's pleasant.
Like coffee though? Coffee adjacent.
Yeah, it's coffee adjacent. And I'll drink coffee black. Not so much this. I mean, I could. It's not like it's gross, but I tend to, like, if you throw cream in it, like tastes like a latte or something. So this is like, I feel like an old man. Mm-hmm.
Freeze-dried coffee. Have you ever had freeze-dried coffee?
I haven't. Although
it's
traditionally, like my parents and things, and old school, you would keep your beans in the freezer or some cold environment. I don't believe we need to do that anymore. But I've not heard of it.
Oh, this is like a World War II thing.
Okay.
Like, this is like your grandparents'
MRE stuff. Okay.
Like Nescafe. Like you basically have crystals. You boil just like tea almost. You make the water hot. You drop it in. So I do that if, for whatever reason, I didn't brew a pot in the morning, or I don't want 2 cups, I'll do it. It doesn't taste great, but it definitely has a unique taste to it. But as far as decaf goes, it's not a bad solution, because you don't have to brew a pot. It's 4 in the afternoon, you're like, I kind of hankering for some coffee, and it keeps forever. So you buy 1 jar, you can have for like 6 years. No one's, it tastes the same. It's what they sent out with the troops in World War II. It became popular, just like coffee, or just like Coca-Cola and Twinkies or whatever,
Yeah, fair enough. Interesting history there. I just know the Americans historically drank coffee because we were too poor for tea, but now coffee's getting more expensive, and I guess we flip. Nobody's drinking tea anymore. Well, unless you're going and getting like boba or something, and that's like, I don't know, $9 a cup or something now. Something crazy. But I digress. What is your favorite space if you can reflect on one? Was there a specific, or maybe two? What's like your highlight
150
space?
of them. You should have prepped me for this one.
Yeah, I know. This is
This
tough.
is kind of
Well, I remember MWEB. Was that a space or was that something else? I remember the MWEB launch or the activation in May of, what was it, 2022?
Okay, so that that wasn't a space. I mean, that was dude. I felt like that. I was blown away that they asked me to do that.
Yeah, that was cool.
At that point, I think I'd been doing it for like 7 months or something. But Jay came in all the time. Jay Milla.
Yep.
Charlie had been in, and I mean everybody from the foundation had been in at some point. And they were like, "Hey, do you want to host this?" And I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" Like my buddy, like I said, who introduced me to Litecoin, I was like, "Dude, I'm gonna be hosting this MWEB thing." He's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, and like even being on stage at the summit still is kind of mind blowing to me, right? But that should tell you, if you're interested in creating something, it's a small environment. You will be welcomed in, and we will promote each other very much so. And so that would probably be the biggest one. I feel like I messed up, and I don't know if you guys know this. Notoriously, in my mind, I played music during it at the end. So it got banned off YouTube for a while.
Oh, wow.
The foundation, we did that on a Thursday night, and the foundation was all like, we want to release this. And it was Friday afternoon. I couldn't get the video up because I had to go through the permissions or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And I had to wait. But I think that was a good thing. I'm going to give you a positive twist, because you shouldn't release.
Well, I remember watching it. So it ended up being out because I wasn't there in attendance live because I had another commitment. But go ahead.
Do not announce important things on a Friday afternoon. Anybody in any world, if you're trying to get attention, don't announce them Friday morning, Friday evening, Saturday. Wait till Monday or Tuesday to make your announcements. All right?
Crickets.
Which we did with the ETF on a Tuesday. It was beautiful. We didn't do it on Sunday on the birthday.
No, we definitely didn't.
The dumbest thing you could do.
Yeah, we definitely did.
Whoever's listening to this, don't announce things on a Sunday. Nobody cares. Nobody's listening.
Fair enough. And here. So that wasn't a space, but maybe it tops your experience of hosting a digital event.
We had some great space. Back in the day, we used to have great spaces. There was a guy who used to come in tux.
Yep.
An Australian guy. I used to have hilarious conversations with him. He would be, he was like, he's the, I don't know, epitome of a Monero guy, maybe. I don't know. Some of these guys that came in early, they might have been into some illegal stuff. I don't know. But I'm not worried about it. They were entertaining. Tux entertained the heck out of me. I think he told us a story about kangaroos at one point. That was a pretty entertaining one. How, like, you got to be genuinely concerned if you come across a kangaroo. Like, it's the size of a man. Like, think about that. I'm worried about squirrels or raccoons in my yard. Can you imagine a kangaroo?
We have wild hogs in Texas, but they're still not the
Yeah,
size. They're still not the size of a man. At least the normal ones.
Yeah. We had good ones with, like, all Storts. Those are some good spaces. He's super talkative, which can be good. We've certainly had ones that we've gotten fired up at each other with. It's, I welcome people to come in and mix it up. I really do. I want other people to create the entertainment sometimes. Because I think that's what I'm trying to do. I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be interesting. I don't just want to talk. I don't just want to talk about Litecoin. Frankly.
So that's an interesting point. And I think you actually, and you are very Litecoin centric. It is Litecoin Underground. But I remember you added the D to the kind of at the tail. How appropriate. Yep. The D at the end of the, I'll call it your brand. And, you were very Doge centric for a little while. And you've always talked about the multi-chain future. And I remember just me as a Litecoiner. When you did that, I was like, oh man, Grant, we might lose him. You know, he's going to Doge or whatever. Like, this is just human being to human being, just two guys here. And I remember that. I was like concerned, but I think clearly you're still a Litecoiner. You've always been a Litecoiner, but I have to express there was like, oh my goodness. And that shows maybe I've got a little maximalism in me or something. But it was an interesting thing to behold, because you were the only Litecoin thing at the time. And I'm like, man, if we're the only Litecoin platform, we need to be just Litecoin only, you know? So I remember going through that with Spaces, but I think it's great. You're very open to having basically anybody in the rooms. And I think it's good.
Do you think that had an impact?
Probably to your advantage.
Well, no, what I mean by that is like, I feel like the Litecoin community has evolved.
Mm-hmm.
And in a number of ways. One of them is that, and which I hope we can really get to, because we need to let go of this Bitcoin bullshit. I'll be honest with you.
So,
but let me get this one of the ways.
I was at that Spaces, by the way. Go ahead.
That Spaces, it's all my space.
Well, there was one where you said cut the cord Bitcoin. It was the title, and I'm like, okay, I got to show up to this one. And then I did, and then I said he didn't talk enough about the topic.
I know. I come up with the topic. I talked for 5 minutes.
It was such a great topic. I'm like, Grant, I want you to specifically unpack this. But you've been doing. Hang on, you've been doing it over the course of time. So go ahead and do it now. I mean,
but what I hope I've influenced people, because this is free market money. It's a free market. That is what we are embracing. If we get caught up in our own egos, you become what we see in Bitcoin today, where they're like, Max Kaiser, we should ban other coins. Like, that is insane. If you have any faith, if you truly believe that your coin is worth a shit, then it should stand against every other. You shouldn't have to worry about it. And if your coin loses, that's actually good. That means that people are choosing something else. That's all you can hope for. If you're a freedom maximalist, a libertarian, a believer in free markets, you should believe that people choosing to do what they want to do is a good thing. So, like stable coins right now, there's people going, I don't like this. Why are stable coins so popular? It's like,
they're very popular.
Because that's what people want to do. What is wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with people engaging how they want to engage. And eventually, again, I believe those people will become Litecoiners. And I also believe we should be listening to the market, that what Bitcoin failed to do, and I've really felt this way, realizing what went on in those block size wars. I do believe Roger Ver was right. I'm going to tell you this right now. You have to have users. If you reject your customers, it's a failing business. You're making a huge, huge mistake. Mm-hmm. I get that there was an idea of, listen, we can't let nodes run amok. We can't have BSV. Fair enough. But we can let's push things back 4 years. Let's add 1 megabyte to these blocks while we're talking about this. And maybe we find a happy medium. And that's where I think Litecoin, we need to embrace this idea of, if we get to 1 million, 2 million transactions a day and fees start going up, all right, if we don't have another viable alternative, let's go to 2 megabytes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just wait. Let's just see how it plays out. We don't need to be dramatic. It doesn't need to be, I don't know. I think computer people try to make computers, they think they can program the world. You can't program the world. We're still people. We still have to trust each other. We still have to try to have good faith conversations. And the thing that's different about cryptocurrencies is that they exist in a free market. And if you make a decision to change let's say we decided, no, we're going to have a tail emission, right? Certain people are going to leave. Or if they decide, oh, it was too high or it no longer is a good money, then they have the option to leave. That's the difference about cryptocurrencies. It's a free market. People can choose what they want to engage with. So let's let the experiments play out. And if I talk about Monero or Thorchain or Dogecoin or Nano or BCH or whatever else it is. If those things prove to be the thing that people want to do, let it be. I mean, okay, maybe I don't get rich. Well, you know what? If people are ultimately living out their lives the way they want to live it, then that's all you can hope for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, being rich, come on, Kyle. It might be nice for me, but
Let's ruin some people too. Yeah.
How much nicer would it be that like there's some fairness in the way the world works?
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who understands how bad the money system is, like how I'm going to use a liberal word here, how maybe this is what's the word? I already lost. That's how bad. That's how disease. How much liberalism sucks. Can't remember the words. How privileged we are.
Oh yes, indeed. Yeah.
We are. I mean, the United States, living in the United States, using the United States dollar and earning it as your native currency is like, we're at the country club of living.
Mm-hmm.
Even the poorest
in
people.
terms of fiat, yes. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, right? The advantages we have and how little we have to do to earn a living. Like I work 40 hours a week like anybody else, and I live a life that people in other countries would fantasize about in their wildest dreams. I have a house, I have a car, I feel safe and secure, I have cable and electric and heat and all, plumbing. Like I don't even think about it. So yeah, if I don't get wildly rich, but people around the world can actually use a money that's fair and they can opt in and out as they choose, that's a far better future. Because I'm not going to be a billionaire. I'm not going to be Elon Musk, and I don't want to be Elon Musk.
Yeah, fair enough on that. Fair enough on that.
I'm happy sitting out by my fire tonight
mm-hmm.
and drinking a couple beers and talking to Kyle. I'm good.
I agree with what you're saying. Where were we?
Well, why are we talking? Let's go.
What?
See you later.
Oh. Peace.
Signing off. We settled.
We're not done yet.
Oh, damn. Okay.
He's ready to opt out. No, we're good. I'm enjoying the conversation, and I think you've done spaces despite incorporating a lot of others, and you just kind of shared along those lines, other projects, tail emissions, whatever, Dogecoin initially, and just being friendly to the ideas that percolate, right? You are still kind of the only one doing it. Do we need more Litecoin spaces? What do we need for education to expand?
I think, well, okay, if you're going to get more Litecoin spaces, right now you probably will get bullish spaces. I mean, Twitter's filled with bullish stuff, right? So I think that would it probably would fill in like a void that exists. I think why Litecoin would be a perfect guy to do that.
Actually, I believe I don't know if I think it is a space. It's YouTube and Spaces, and he started this week with Master. So that's exactly that.
Yeah. Like running the actual spaces sometimes is a bit of a trick. Like I think that's something that I do. I'm going to pat myself on the back. Just managing the people coming in and out, cutting someone off when they need to cut off, understanding when to stop, and but those two would be great doing that. But yeah, you meant like I think outreach. I think you mentioned that in the notes. Well, broadening who you're talking to.
Yeah,
that's what we need. And I think I wish again I had all the time in the world, because I think we should be engaging various communities, but not in a, hey, I'm here to just talk about Litecoin. I'm doing a sales pitch. Buy Litecoin, buy Litecoin, buy Litecoin. It's more just becoming a part of those communities that will understand the value proposition that cryptocurrency in general provides, and understand that if you're in the crypto world and you understand crypto, you're going to get why Litecoin is valuable. You're going to see that it's available everywhere. It's cheap to transact. It's easy to use. Like, what else am I looking for? Flat out. What else are you looking for in a money? I don't need bells and whistles. I think it's funny in crypto is there seems to be more hype around what can be than what actually is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my Kamala. What?
Yeah.
What's her thing?
What can be unburdened by what has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they want to go, oh man, this coin is going to be used. It's awesome. It does this and that. It's like, well, Litecoin's used right now. Like it's currently being used. There's the sales pitches for the future as opposed to like, hey, what about like right now?
Mm-hmm.
Like Bell's coin right now. I know they're big. I know they're merge mined and nothing wrong with Bell's coin. But the whole thing is like, imagine what we're going to do in the future. We're going to do this, this, and this. But what about what Litecoin's already done and is continuing to do every single day? And that,
yeah. And I think
it's going to wash away. It seems to be that the memes are becoming less. You can tell me. Do you think they're becoming less meaningful than they used to be?
I never really followed them, to be fair. In fact, I used to have, just for personal holdings or whatever, I used to want everything under the sun and whatever was new. That was kind of like the early days. And I've trimmed them down so much over the years. Like I really only care about proof of work and like it's on my hand. I even announced, like I made a tweet the other week, like I don't even have Bitcoin anymore really. Then I forgot I technically have a little ballet like milli Bitcoin or something, but like I've actually detethered from Bitcoin, and I'm not saying other people need to do that. I'm just saying I've become less and less interested in everything else, even Bitcoin, over the past several years in this kind of journey. And I do like Doge. I think Bell's is really interesting, although it's kind of an anomaly because our last episode, I mentioned about how they're bringing back like Fairbricks and Lucky Coin and all these other ancient history, dusty blockchains. Like, I don't think it's going to be the same thing as spinning up bills, getting them to speed run the entire past decade of developments on it and actually updating it, getting it merge mined. Like those other ones aren't going to have that happen. So it's fine. Again, no prohibitions, but I don't think there's much there personally. Maybe I'm wrong. But I never really followed like, Pepe Coin or any of them really. I mean, Doge was the OG. Everybody knows that. And of course, back in the day I had it, and I've been in and out of it many times over the past few years. I still like it. And I've actually come a lot more around to accepting it, that it is non-arbitrary despite being absolutely inflationary, right?
There's a portion of the Litecoin community that has a lot of like, they got a beef with Doge.
Well, I think the tail emission thing is very interesting. After the 84 millionth
you know what I mean, though? Like
Litoshi is mined, we can still get Doge, and to a degree Bells too now.
But do you know what I mean? Like on Reddit, there's a lot of almost like they believe Doge is the reason that Litecoin hasn't pumped or something like that. Have you heard this?
There's so many theories. I know it's tough. I mean, beyond my pay grade. I can't speak to that. I think Doge is fine. Like you, they do coexist natively through script, right? Doge merged to Litecoin. Litecoin didn't merge to Doge. And I think it's important. I mean, market cap, or however those things are determined, and obviously the Elon situation, and is it being used as money? It doesn't look like it. I mean, if you look at BitPay or whatever, it doesn't look like it. But people use it. There's a lot of like peripheral, ordinal stuff, with the Dogeanols and things. So they have a vibrant community, and I think that's important. And I do like the idea that we have a television, and I do believe that Bitcoin, in order to survive, needs to adopt something similar, but we'll see if that happens. They'll probably be forced to in some period of time. But I'm cool with memes. I was never chasing memes. If anything, I'm super late to memes. But after Doge kind of showed itself in the world in terms of number go up, I'll admit it, I was kind of like, wow, I never, ever, ever, ever expected that. And so I'm like, wow, maybe I was wrong about Doge. Or maybe it was just, chosen and pumped and by big people, and that's probably part of the truth too. But I don't think it's going away. I like it. It's proof of work. It's very similar to Litecoin, so I think they work together nicely.
I'm surprised at the staying power so far of Doge. I thought that it would fade a bit. Mm-hmm. Like Shiba Inu is another one. Like, where?
Yeah, those I don't really. And you could have made a lot if you're talking about just jumping on something and making that. I actually am like, yeah, don't. Friends would ask me, and I don't give financial advice. This show's not about that, but we have friends and we talk candidly to one another. You know, I'm like, I'm not interested, and other friends bought it, like, oh, whatever. They made money on it, and I'm like, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I was clearly wrong because it did very well, and you could have thrown however much you wanted and saw it multiply. I wasn't a part of it, so.
Right.
There's a lot of memes out there. I think they're kind of a dime. They're a dime a dozen. Doge is the OG kind of king, and now with Bells and its story, I think is especially fascinating. And I like that they're script. I do like that they are now merge mined together. I think there's a lot of synergy between the communities. I know there's been some criticism about that, but so far I think it's a good thing. So. More will be revealed, but I like that we get all three with script. It benefits the script miners. They're going to be more profitable. It's going to incentivize people to mine more for us and strengthen our protocols. So,
yeah, I think the thing that I would tell people who are like, I guess angry at Doge, or like what I see is like, oh, their miners are mining Doge and they're selling Litecoin to stack Doge. That's not a.
There's the reversal.
That's not a Dogecoin problem. That's not a Dogecoin's fault, right? This is where, again, the market comes into play. Like, you can't dictate to people how they should treat your money. Like, that's up to them. They can do what they want to do, and if they don't see Litecoin as valuable or having a compelling reason to hold and buy Litecoin, that's a flaw either in Litecoin or in us as a community. We're not communicating that effectively, because there's thousands. I mean, I always bring up Vertcoin, because Vertcoin to me is such a great example of here's a proof of work coin, 84 million max cap, that is meaningless. It's worth zero.
In fact, somebody cloned the 84 million account and made an 84 million Vertcoin account that's literally a clone of the 84 million account, which is interesting.
So this represents to you, scarcity is meaningless. It doesn't mean what you think it means. Just because something is scarce doesn't make it valuable. What makes it valuable is us. People make things valuable.
Yep.
So if you want Dogecoiners to help you with Litecoin, they're already helping by making mining more profitable. Get them to understand that Litecoin benefits them more than Bitcoin. Stop talking about Bitcoin if you're a Dogecoiner. Stop talking about Litecoin's going to go to number 2. You know what? I hate to say it. If you're a Litecoin lover and you want Litecoin to be successful, don't talk about being second best to Bitcoin, because Litecoin is better than Bitcoin. I don't know why we're afraid to say it. It's obvious.
And there's kind of back to the cut the cord. We like this, Grant.
The only metric that you can point to is the price, the US dollar price. Besides that, there's no reason. There's been zero growth in Bitcoin since 2017. You look at transactions per day, zero growth. Litecoin's up like since maybe 10,000 to 200,000, 20x since then. So the future is growth. The future is adoption. The future is people using the thing and setting a real value to the asset. If I go and put my money onto an exchange, Italy just raised their capital gains tax on cryptocurrency this week, like 25 to 42%. So when you put your money into an exchange in Italy, well, you just lost 17% of your value, because you can't sell it without getting taxed. The whole point is to hold it privately, to not expose yourself to exchanges and banks and governments. Ultimately, these all are governments. Banks and exchanges are extensions of the government, because the government can control them and do whatever they want. They can tell them to do whatever they want. The second you put your name,
sometimes vice versa.
Well, you think the exchanges tell the government what to do?
Well, banks. You could talk about the Fed.
They might be
like the bank.
They are one and the same. I think that's the hard thing to get right. Like universities are basically the government. Like the university cannot survive without the government, and vice versa, probably. But so stop playing this game of I'm going to put my money here. Well, Bitcoin went up. It's like, this is not what this is about. This is about avoiding the destruction of your money. That's the way I put it, man. Inflation is destruction. Taxation is destruction. People cooperating produce infinite abundance. Humans working together can create anything. Look at Elon just caught a rocket out of the sky.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Right? These are people working together, despite all the horrible conditions the regulations and all the things that can be put on him. He can thrive because people are working together. Taxation, inflation, regulation, these are all destructive properties. And if you're just going to play the game, you're just going to put your money into an account, you're just replicating the old system. Literally changed nothing. And this is where Litecoin needs to pivot and say, Bitcoin has failed us. This community has failed us. They lost their way somewhere. And let's take this as a warning. We are now the holders of the truth. Like we are the path forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like today, MWEB is going to launch. Sorry, my nose is itchy. I'm sorry. MWEB is going to launch on Cake Wallet on Monday, I think. And the first thing they put out there, Seth for Privacy said, hey, Litecoin to Monero transactions. So if you're a Monero guy, why bother with Bitcoin? What does it provide you? Zero.
Yeah.
It's expensive. It's slow. It's completely captured. Stop it. I don't understand. You want to cut the cord. Why are you wasting your time? Let me look in the camera. Why are you wasting your time with Bitcoin? It's peaked out. It's reached its max capacity. It's in every ETF, bank, government, whatever. It's completely captured. There's nowhere else for it to go except for continued compliance. Mm-hmm. All right. You got cut the cord grant. Is that what you wanted, you said?
I think we just got some. That was pretty good. I've been waiting a long time for this, but no, that was a good statement. And I've said it to others and even folks in the foundation that like Litecoiners need to show their teeth like way more. And I think we're going to naturally start to do that. And I mean, we're prevailing and killing it on like every metric, right? Except for the NGU. Yep. But I think that will, if we want to talk to the bulls in the room, I think that will change too. But the point is everything else is already there. So no, I think that's important. I like what you said. I'm glad that you said it. I think even me, I've created different designs, and there was one that I made, which was like a revolutionary sort of theme, the Ben Franklin meme. And it was initially like, proof of work, like Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Doge, which is like kind of the Nakamoto standard idea, which was Indigo and myself and some others. And I'm like, that's natural. It makes sense. But it's just like, that's a nice ideal, but I don't see, at least with maximalism, I don't actually see them joining to Litecoin or let's say the tail of Doge. Like, it's not really an appropriate meme. I like it, but it's not actually very true. And that I'm just realizing, right?
You look almost like SHA-256 and Bitcoin is the Old Testament.
I like S-CRYPT better. It's definitely better for miners. And
but you know what I mean? Like
if you want to home mine, you can do it. You can't do it with SHA anymore. But
the concept of this is the foundation, the beginning.
And the other one's the extension and fulfillment. I mean, that's a good, I've not thought of it in that kind of lens, but I sort of like it. Yeah.
Like the genesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin is the genesis. Like it's the foundation of all things.
Yeah.
You obviously we wouldn't have Litecoin without Bitcoin, obviously. And that at some point in time, it's like there's better things
mm-hmm.
in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not even, and I think it's silly to identify the protocol as like it has some kind of personality because it's just a computer program.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's the community. It's the vision, I guess, the best way to put it, of where Bitcoin has gotten captured. It's so plainly obvious that they, even today, they don't even go, you know what, let's just double the block size.
Yeah. I think Litecoiners would be more willing to do that. I talked with Clemens about that and the whole Pepsi situation. And I think these are going to be serious discussions. We already have a lot of scaling with MWEB and just the way our blocks are set up. But I think we would be more nimble to adopt something like that in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, or be open to it and understand that it's okay to propose these ideas and talk about them. Again, let's have like I said, it's been maybe 40 minutes. I was saying, have conversations and understand just because somebody has an idea doesn't make them the enemy, doesn't make them a bad person. You don't censor them. You don't kick them out of your spaces. You don't tell them they're an asshole or a whatever, horrible terrorists, or you know what I'm saying? So if the Bitcoiners that, like again, Roger Ver gets just excommunicated, I do think the reason he got excommunicated was because he chose to actually hard fork, because he got fed up, and probably he did jump the gun in doing that, but it doesn't make him a bad person. And he didn't ruin BTC, did he? No. Mm-hmm. And if anything, they can say, hey, we won, but it doesn't mean you vilify the guy. So that's what I hope we understand, is that we should have constructive conversations around it. We shouldn't silo off. We shouldn't silence people. We shouldn't anoint people. Like, again, if I have an opinion, just because I have a platform doesn't mean I'm right. And just because somebody's a developer or somebody is on at the foundation doesn't mean they're right. But, let's take it into consideration. And that's kind of how you move forward, is to have constructive conversations. So I don't know. I mean, let's hope that's the future. Let's hope we see, really 5 years from now, will we be seeing 1 million, 2 million transactions on Litecoin? It feels that way, for sure.
Yeah. I think we're definitely growing, and it's exciting. Like I said, we kind of crush it on every metric, and I don't think that's going to stop at all, especially with the ossification of Bitcoin. But yeah, Bitcoin, I think it's important in the world, but I agree with what you're saying, and I think I agree with it more and more. Again, that I'm no longer really even involved in Bitcoin to the degree that I was never stacking it early on. I was never some whale or anything like this. But just as someone who's watched the space and honored it, and I think Litecoiners have been very good at honoring Bitcoin, just as maybe Dogecoiners would say, hey, Litecoin is our Bitcoin, or something like this. Like, there's kind of a hey, this came before, let's give it some reverence, but with the arrogance and everything that's going on there, it is concerning. And the fact that it's failing as a person-to-person money is just a fact. And it seems to be turning out to be something that governments and highly centralized institutions will hoard. And unless you're, borrowing your word again, privileged with, just a significant amount of Bitcoin, you're not going to be using it on chain. So again, captured was the word that we've used. I see that. On the other side, I do think when you do fight for Bitcoin, you are also fighting for the other proof of work blockchains. And that's where some maximalists get that and others don't. Now, they might omit and be silent on the other proof of work chains, but some of them are wise enough to not, malign them. Some of them are foolish enough to malign them. And then my question is like, okay, so if you're going to malign Litecoin or whatever, do you realize you're maligning your own project? Like, you can't do it. So it's interesting. So in that regards, we are kind of, friends and friendly at the protocol level, but with the way it's being, the way developments are and the way that things are evolving, I'm liking Litecoin a lot more. And doesn't mean Bitcoin's not important, but I like it.
I just spit at Bitcoin. At the same time, there are some Bitcoiners who are trying to tread a path. Mm-hmm. Like I think they're well intended. Like, they're trying to say, how do we get regulation and this and that? And
correct. I'm with you.
Truly and I don't think they're bad people. And I think if anything, they're laying the groundwork for, like, if you think Litecoin is going to become the same thing as Bitcoin. They're making an easy path.
And they might change their mind down the road too. Yeah.
I just truly don't think that that's even a viable future. I don't think governments, this is my tagline. If you don't know who I am, the tagline of my space is control of the money supply is oxygen to governments. They cannot function without it, at least not in their current state. So to think that they're just going to cut off their own oxygen supply you cannot expect this. It's insanity to believe that they're going to do that. And to believe if it's this government's going to be good, or this tax is going to be good, or this institution, or whatever, it's totally corrupted and cannot survive. It cannot, period. As much as we want to believe we can do it and we can wriggle our way into this regulated system and the government's going to buy our coins and it's somehow they're never going to let go. They can't. They've unfunded liabilities, Kyle, $250 trillion they owe. Like, how can they just go, well, we're just going to welcome Bitcoin in and everybody's going to get rich and we're never going to pay our debts up? Like, it just doesn't make sense unless the only way they'll do it is they choose to totally bankrupt everybody in the country simultaneously. That's the only way it works. They invalidate their own money. And then if they do that, they're going to end up like, I don't know, what happened to Marie Antoinette. That's how they would end up. That's the only way this goes down, if you're going to let people own Bitcoin and just use it. Mm-hmm. So the European Union had, I think it's MICA, M-I-C-A, something about regulating digital assets. I forget what it was. Mm-hmm. The one stable coin, they banned Tether.
Yep.
And the reason they banned Tether is because it was actually used in exchanges. They said they will allow stable coins to exist if they are used in like less than $200 million in transactions a day or something like that. Some weird arbitrary number.
Right.
Governments do arbitrary. Because they know that if you use these things, you undermine everything they do. You've actually dodged the government. If you use Litecoin peer-to-peer, you've completely dodged their system. You're untrackable. They can't stop you. You're untaxable. And they lose power all over the place. So they're not going to let this happen. So stop expecting it. Mm-hmm. And that's the Bitcoin game plan is we're just going to, nation state adoption? What? You really think these people give a fuck about you? And your stupid coin?
Oh, boy.
Visually, what I do at 11:22 at night on a Wednesday. This is me yelling into my phone normally, without the face.
Well, you make a good point. We'll leave your words stand as is. Let's transition.
All right.
Most of the I do. Most of the kind of the Q&A rapid fires, I think we already covered, so I'm going to totally scratch them. But let's maybe end on you mentioned Cake Wallet. You mentioned, swapping Litecoin MWEB into Monero, which, by the way, I thought about that. Monero is market cap 29. If we care about market caps, there's some value to judging something based on those metrics. And Litecoin's 20. So I've always said that, and I know this doesn't mean the amount pegged in, but Litecoin is the number one privacy coin in terms of liquidity and availability, and like nobody even knows about it, which is wild. And maybe that's the best way to do it, by the way. But that's clearly exciting you. What are you excited about in Litecoin, or what would you like the community to focus on, or where would you like to see things going in the, next 6 months to a year, whatever?
I want to think about this one. I'm excited about continued growth that's organic. That's not generated by some kind of meme or a pump or whatever. When we had the Bit Refill guy on, I think I still have it right here. Bit Refill. I haven't erased it.
Yep.
when he was on a few weeks ago, and to see that Litecoin's growing in every part of the world. And what I love about him is that he's a Bitcoiner, and he's like sitting there going, I don't know why. Like, he can't explain. He understands stable coins. He understands Bitcoin. He understands Polygon and Ethereum growing. He's literally dumbfounded. Why is Litecoin growing? And that to me is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are people around the world.
Because it shows it's not some organized plan that's just happening.
No narrative. There's no general, like, he had some examples in Lightning of, well, we have this one program in Argentina that's caused this huge bump. We know that. Well, El Salvador has this. So he knows why there's these bumps in other assets, but he doesn't understand Litecoin. And that's awesome to me. That's what I want to see. I want to see people who are just choosing this thing because it's the right fit. It is everywhere. It's easy to use. It's not expensive. There's no drama in it, right? And what are you looking for when I think Paul Stewart said something funny on our stage at Litecoin Summit. He said about, if you go use Visa and MasterCard and Visa fails you 1 out of 100 times, you might forgive it once, but the second time you're like, okay, I'm just going to use MasterCard from now on. And that's exactly what's happening. If you look at the usage charts, fees go up on Bitcoin, people gravitate towards Litecoin. When fees come back down, yeah, some people go back, but not all of them. And so slowly but surely, all those users start to gravitate towards Litecoin. And let's embrace it. Again, I go back to the thing of maybe it's an idealism. If Litecoin grows to 2 million, 3 million, 4 million transactions and fees start to go up, and we decide as a community, let's keep growing this blockchain. And we keep adopting users, and they can use it at a reasonable fee because they want to use it. And for some, hey, in 20 years, nodes get too big. I don't know if that's a problem. I would rather have that be the problem we have to deal with than we just have no users. Like, let's solve a problem. Let's solve the problem that people around the world are subject not only to their own country's horrible destruction of their own money, but by proxy, the U.S. dollar is doing the same thing to them. Like, it's like a multiplier, right? It's an exponential destruction of their own money. Mm-hmm. And we can help some people solve that. I think the net good is much bigger than anything we could hope to enrich ourselves with or whatever, right? Again, maybe I'm saying that from a privileged space. I do. I'm fortunate enough to have a job, and, I'm not a rich guy, but I have enough that I'm very happy with what I have, and I'm always capable. I'm a person that can go out and make my own way. I have opportunities abundantly. I live in a place that we're a blessed person. If I think you're more religious than I am. I'm blessed. So why am I worried about my own? Like, I can go make my own way. Let's try to make something that works well for everybody and makes a better system. Mm-hmm. So that's what I hope. I hope that people can use it and realize that it has value to them.
Here. Good. You made me think of something, so I'm going to tag on to my question rather than land the plane.
And is it weird when I sip beer and the beer's right in my face?
No, it looks completely normal and natural. And by the way, I hope you're enjoying it. IPA Pilsner, what's in the glass?
So I had, I actually work at my company, a small company I work for. It's in Holland, Michigan, and I will plug them. They have 2 beers. This one, New Holland.
Okay.
There's a Midwest, Mad Hatter it's called. And they have one called Tangerine Space Dream. If you ever come across it, it's a great beer. So there's my
There
plug.
you go. It sounds like local, yet they distribute.
Yeah, I think they just distribute regionally, though. I don't know.
Regionally, yeah.
Or anything.
Very good. To my question.
What did I prompt you to say?
To my question. Once upon a time, and I mention this because I went through the realization, And it doesn't mean I'm never going to own Bitcoin again. Okay. I'll get to my question or my statement and then my question. I think there was a period of time where you wanted to run into all of these other altcoins to get ratios to ultimately sell them to buy back Bitcoin. You wanted something else to ultimately get Bitcoin. I can tell you that today I want Litecoin because it is Litecoin. And I think more people will come to that kind of idea. And maybe that old model is dying of I need X, Y, or Z to get more BTC. Speaking of miners, in the S-CRYPT algorithm, now we pushed Bitcoin aside. I would think it would make sense to sell the Doge and hold the Litecoin, the limited asset. That could be a shift because we've seen that, these numbers coming out recently and I don't know how they're getting these metrics, to be honest. Obviously, any new supply of Litecoin has to come from miners, right? Mm-hmm. There's no other way to get it. Otherwise, existing supply circulates through exchanges, person to person, et cetera. I don't know how they're seeing that miner reserves are at all-time lows unless all of the pools are publicly auditable. So I don't entirely know that, but if that is the case, then, they've been selling a lot of it. It doesn't mean they're going, I don't think they're going to continue to do that necessarily. I mean, of course, if they want to sell it, they may. It depends on the miner and the mine. I don't know. I don't make those decisions, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if everything's being liquidated all the time, that could also stop. And it would actually make more sense for that to stop. But anyway,
they've only got a couple million coins left and
less than 10 million.
And again, that's the market. You can't complain about miners choosing to sell. That's their choice. Mm-hmm. And the only way the price goes up is if we have people using it and finding value in it. Whether miners are holding it, we can have artificial holders, mm-hmm. speculators. Like GameStop went up 10x, right, or 100x or something. It was artificial. Irrational holding is not a market. A market is people realize, like, being happy with a certain amount of gain, using this money, having utility to it, or else it's all gamesmanship. If it's all GameStop, are we all GameStop? Do you think?
No, No. That's not what I mean. But I do think that in the event that this is an actual metric that we can trust and it's been liquidated every bit of Litecoin's out, then that's like, okay, well, what happens when demand comes in? Because there's no more of it to offload unless it's in your wallet or mine.
Right.
Well,
the demand's been there. I think what you're saying is the demand has been there.
Yeah, and they've been liquidating.
Yep.
And my thing is they may decide not to be as liquid in the future and sell the inflationary product of the mine, which would be Bell or Doge. So I'm curious of what that would do to pressures and things like this. But back to the point on Litecoiners coming to the point of we get Litecoin because it's Litecoin. Do you think more people will? I think a lot of us may have already been there, just we're on different paths. But do you think that original kind of goal is crumbling? I want Litecoin or something else to sell back and oscillate into Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on, I think Shan and I are, and I guess you now, right? We're some of the few going, I don't have any real reason to go back.
I don't want to use it with those fees, the congestion. If there is $1 million Bitcoin, I do not want to be thinking about operating on chain.
Yeah. Well,
just saying, I don't even want to think about it.
I will tell you, I do like Vlad Costia.
Mm-hmm. I
think he's going to become a Litecoiner.
He already is. I mean, he's a maximalist, but he's already a Litecoiner.
I know.
He's a friend of all of ours.
But I mean, is like you hear him talk and you see his posts and you go, he's seeing like, this doesn't make sense. And anybody who has a mind about him can't live irrationally for very long. Like if you're renting an apartment and you have the money to buy a house and you're like, eventually you're going, okay, eventually I just have to bite the bullet and accept that maybe whatever my choice was yesterday isn't the right choice going forward. And I think I posed that to him in our conversation. Like, do you think the development process is broken on Bitcoin? And I think he does. I think he sees that the undertaking to get over that hump is so ridiculous, and it's unnecessarily ridiculous. You can have something that works beautifully and perfectly, like MWEB, VPM, whatever you want to call it. It could work on Litecoin for 5 years or something, like, well, this and that, and that to me, I don't know why. I don't know why that is. I think you're a guy that is a libertarian. You understand
most of the time
how the
with a lowercase L,
how various agencies within the government can get their fingers into things by trying to politicize this. Take it easy. It's obvious to me that there are actors inside of the Bitcoin who are trying to stunt its growth, who are trying to make it difficult to do anything. They can't have this OpCat that apparently everybody loves and they've been talking about for a year. It just doesn't happen. What is going on? Why is it? Why? Can anybody explain why it's not happening?
Bells is working on putting that in their protocol already.
Bells going to speed run everybody.
They basically do everything.
I thought about that. I walked my dog as I was walking back. I'm like, Bells is going to be merge mine, MWEB, drive chains. They're going to do everything.
It's a possibility. It seriously is.
But that might be what ends up being what everybody wants.
Yeah.
Is that one chain comes in and goes, you know what? Screw it. We're just going to do everything.
Yeah. And maintain proof of work at that. Which is great.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you go, well, those are all the features I want. Why wouldn't I use it? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're influencing humans. You're not programming computers. These are human beings who engage with the money for a short amount of time. You talk about, well, if you hold on to it for 10 years, hey, guess what? 98% of the people in the world don't save their money. They spend it. So a fee is way more taxing than inflation.
Interesting. Yeah. We have low fees in Litecoin, in case you didn't know.
Yeah. Everybody's watching this knows. But all right, I've been passionate tonight. I think
you've been good
on the gamut.
I think we're at a sweet spot. We'll let it go. I appreciate you for coming on, Grant. Again, let's find this guy at Litecoin Underground on YouTube, where you can find your podcast, LTC Underground on X. Of course, we thank you for
Twitter.
The listeners.
Call it Twitter. I refuse to call it X. It's Twitter.
It's like Pluto. It will always be a planet to me. But,
exactly.
But either way, we thank you, Grant, for coming on. Congrats on 3 years. It's amazing. Of course, to the folks here at 84 Million, we thank you as well for following us on your podcast apps, YouTube, etc. Find this episode and all the others at 84million.com/podcast. And with that being said, Grant, any final thoughts before we close the show?
I think I said a lot. Reach out to other people. I think that would be the thing I would tell Litecoiners is find adjacent communities. If you're interested in who to talk to, don't talk to Solana people or Doge people or Bitcoin people. Talk to silver stackers, gold bugs, libertarians, people who understand how broken this system is. It's so deeply broken. The money system really has corrupted every institution you think is level-headed and in your best interest. Universities and science and media and all these people are corrupted by the money system not because they're bad people, but it's just distorted how we all engage in the world. And so if you find people who understand that, they will understand cryptocurrencies and why having a government-less money, an uncontrolled money, is valuable beyond the dollars and cents. That's what you have to get through to people. And once they understand, I can trade, like I said today, Litecoin privately 24/7 in any market in the world without any intermediaries. That's infinitely more valuable than a couple of dollars on the market, what you're going to sell it for. So that's what I'll leave you with.
Well said, sir. Thank you for coming on the show tonight.
All right. Thanks. I appreciate it, Kyle. Good to finally make it happen.
Hear, hear, sir. Friends, follow Grant. You know where to find him. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in today. Cheers.